Hello everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be replacing or installing the U-joints that we pulled off on the last video on my 1987 Yamaha Big Bear 350, the original of course, and hopefully we don't have too much of an issue with that. So we're going to get right straight into the thick of things. But before I forget, if you guys do like this video, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and as well maybe sharing it with your friends. So let's dive right in. Before I get started on any of these projects, I always like to make sure that the parts are the same. There's nothing worse than getting halfway done and you realize that the part just doesn't fit. So obviously right off the bat there's a subtle difference. One being that even if I flip this guy around, there's no grease fitting hole on the old one, and there is one on this one. The new one also comes with your choice of either a 45-degree a plug or even just a 90-degree fitting, and of course all new clips, so that's really good. Now there's always a debate, well, you know, if you put a hole in these and you grease them, they become a little weaker. I don't know if that's going to be the case for a little Big Bear with, you know, a 350. There's a lot of torque, but as you guys know, I'm a big fan of grease. I mean, if it was socially acceptable, I'd probably spread it on my toast. I ended up getting these parts from a local vendor. And yes, these are all balls. I'm not sponsored by them or by anyone for that matter. However, someone was asking me what the part numbers were, so there they are. That's the U-joint kit. I've got the other one over here. And if I get to it in this video, I also need to change the left front wheel bearing, and that's the kit that we get here. So I'll have these linked in the description down below anyways. I've gone ahead and I've installed the grease fitting right away because it's been my experience that it's quite difficult to install these once these cups are in place and the U-joint is all set in place. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now. Hopefully that doesn't bite me in the butt later. And I chose the 45-degree. I think that's going to be my best bet into getting into that location later when we have it all together. And I'm just going to simply, and again, this is not a job that I do every day. Actually, it's probably the first time I ever do the U-joints on this, so we're going to learn together. But what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to put half of this U-joint on one half of the yoke, and I'm going to put the do the same thing at both halves, put the drive shaft in place, and then use a C-clamp to squeeze the other two on the bike. Hopefully that works. If not, we're going to have to come up with a better way. But for now, let's just put these in place. So I'm going to remove two of these cups. And guys, if you've never done this before, just make sure that when you take these cups out, that all of these little needles inside stay put. You don't want one to fall flat in the bottom of the cup, because when you go to press it in, it'll hit the cross here and it will not fully press, and you won't be able to put the lock pin, and you're going to wonder why, and you're going to curse and you're going to swear, and it's not a good time. Overall, doing these is just not a good time. Pop this inside like this. You want to try and make sure everything stays nice and clean too. And then slowly insert one cup, kind of line it up as best as you can in the yoke. See, that one's going in already, which is fantastic. Look at that. And we're going to do the same thing over here. I would also recommend, if you have nicked the outside of your yoke, you know, by hammering on it like I did. One thing I didn't show in the video is that I actually chamfered just ever so slightly around both holes with a file, just to make my life a little bit easier. So now I'm going to gently press these in place with my vise. I try and avoid tapping on these with a hammer simply because you can imagine those needles may want to move, and then, like I was saying earlier, it's just not fun. So nice and slow, we're going to let these in there. And along the way, I always like to make sure that I'm not binding or jamming against anything. And again, this would be a good time to make sure you got the orientation of your grease fitting just right I want it on the outside. Or do I? Actually, after looking at that again, I have this wrong. Luckily, I'm pretty sure if I remove one of these cups, I probably just rotate this. Ah, yes. Whew. Okay, at least this one, I can do that. I'm not sure if I can do that with all of them. Okay, now that, depending on the angle I have here, I know there's a bit of an angle on this. I should hopefully be able to get in there. Okay, crisis averted. Let's keep pushing this in here. Alright, so as you can see, I've got one all the way in, or at least just about all the way in. Still not jammed up, which is good, but it is nice and tight. And this one, not quite there. So I'm going to grab a socket or an old cup and then just give myself a little bit more push against this cross. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because you you have to line up everything here. Remember that your socket has to be slightly smaller than the hole because obviously you won't be pressing on anything. And we're going to do it on this side as well. So once you're satisfied that you have them in place, you can also now install the little clip. And again, there's really no trick to this as far as I know. However, it wouldn't be a bad idea to wear safety glasses, unlike I'm doing, and just pushing these in, because these tend to go flying. So just be aware of that. That one did as well. Awesome. Another check. Okay. Looking good. It's moving. It's not bound up. It doesn't feel notchy. If it feels kind of notchy or ratchety when you're moving it, I could tell you that the bearing has too much pressure on it. Cool. So I'm going to do the rear one like this, and then we're going to try and squeeze everything into the bike, and then we're going to press the other two halves in the bike, I hope. Alright, so here's the plan. I got my drive shaft all cleaned up, all the parts are there. It's set up in the orientation it has to go in. This is the rear. So, oh, and before I go too far, guys, I decided to switch the rear grease fitting from a 45 to a 90 because I think that's going to give me more room to get in there later. So that's going to go in there as well. And before I go too far, I'm also going to be putting, I would either recommend a nice thick grease on these splines, or in my case, I'll probably be using some kind of like anti-corrosion compound. So I'm going to slide all this in place underneath the engine. I'm going to probably press the rear one in first, and then I'm going to go ahead and hopefully be able to press the front one with the drive shaft just like this, and then I'll squeeze the spring and add my little circlip around the drive shaft. Put the boots on, and Bob's your uncle, or Frank, or whoever else. I got lots of uncles, Roger. So yeah, wish me luck. Okay, how are we gonna do this? We're gonna go too far. Let's remove these cups. I can't lose these or drop them. Slide this guy in place. Okay, something along those lines. Before I go too far, I think I'm going to mock up the front as well. Alright, let's see if this is going to work. Okay, so we finally got that on. That's excellent. That was a fender, by the way. Okay, So this might work after all. Back to the back now, or I guess returning to the back. I would normally use a C-clamp for doing these types of things, because then you're pressing it in just like you would normally press it in, let's say like at a bench vise that we did earlier. But I can't get my C-clamp in there, clearly. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to tackle this, but I'm thinking maybe I can use a pair of locking pliers or slip joint pliers like this. Hopefully these will open up big enough, and if they don't, I might end up having to go to the store and getting a smaller C-clamp to get it in there, if I can't get it in there any other way. Oh, and you guys see all the oil, by the way, all piling up? If you do this and you have to wait for parts, put the bolts back in. I had these two out. I got lazy, only tightened one up, and it's still kind of seeping, as you can tell. Because for a little while I was worried that maybe my lower seal here was the issue, but nope, it's coming from up here. So we're going to have to give the pressure washer another good run for its money, because we're going to end up having to power wash this guy after we're done this again. And making sure we have enough oil in here, of course. Maybe I'll get lucky enough that I can, I don't know, use those pliers. Even if it gets me part way in there. I really don't like hammering on these cups going on the way in, but I may have no choice here. Alright, what's going on here? I see. So this is why it's very important, guys, to pay attention, because one of my little needles has kind of fallen out of its place. It's not too far yet, but it won't let me push it all the way in. There we go. That seems like it's better. So I'm going to rotate this, hopefully. I don't know how this is going to work out here. You want to go? It's going to go. Hopefully I'm not blocking you guys out. There's that fender again. Okay, now let's hopefully put this cup in there. Let's make sure, yep, all those needles are in line. And maybe give this a little taparoo here, see if I can get anywhere. Shouldn't have to go crazy. So I'm holding the back one with my hand so it doesn't fall out, of course. And I'm kind of going very lightly on this. And it seems to make some progress, so let's keep going. Well, that side's almost all the way in. So let's give this another rotation. I got the flap stopping in the cogs of the tire, the tread of the tire. There we go, that's better. Now, with any luck, alright, as you saw there, that one went all the way in. So I think now would be a good time to install the clip. Oh, it's really hard to get in there. Probably blocking you guys out here, sorry, but you kind of get the idea. Aha! Gotcha! Gotcha. Okay. Now that clip is going to help us a lot, because now when we continue to hammer, we will be able to get this guy in. Hopefully. Alright, so as you saw there, that clip does not, or sorry, the cup doesn't want to go in. So I'm going to see if I can remove it. And there you see, that was the issue right there. We had two of our little needles out of line, and as you can see in here, all the rest of them kind of fell out, and there was no way that was going to continue going in. So that's what happens when something's out of line. Okay, usually when this happens, I'll take a small screwdriver. It's clean, of course, and I'll just kind of stand these up one by one until everything's back the way it's supposed to. And there you go. So now that's all the way in, all around. So we'll try that again. And that's the danger of tapping these guys in, because right off the bat you might be dislodging them. And also be aware that that is a possibility, because if you're in there and you're just smashing with a bigger hammer, you will break these cups. I know that because I've done it. See how much easier that goes in now? Awesome. Now we can hopefully lock that clip like that. So that's how the back is done, I guess. That's cool. Wasn't that bad. I mean, removing it was a different chore altogether. And are we going to be able to get to our greasing fitting? And look at that. We will have plenty of room in order to grease that. That's awesome. And now for the front. And maybe I'll be able to use the C-clamp method that I like to use on these U-joints. There is more room after all, but we don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Alright, so once those two cups are in as far as they can go by hand, I like to line up the C-clamp here. Just put it over top of the whole yoke assembly, and just like you would do on your vise on the bench, you're just going to drive this in nice and slow. You don't want to force anything. I mean, that's pretty well good life advice all around. So once you got it just about where you want it, just slowly add some pressure to it and you'll see it go in. The cup on the opposite side was out of alignment. She's lined up now. And be aware, guys, that if it's too tough, it could be like the back one where the cups fell out of place, or sorry, the bearing in the cup fell out of place, and you gotta realign them. This one's popping a little bit. I think it's due to the angle of this drive shaft. It's going in nice though. Otherwise. And I think that's it. Well, that one seems to have gone in much easier than the one in the back, of course. So let's rotate it to put in the first clip. See if it even fits. Alright, come on, girl. Get in there. Oh. Come on. There you go. There's one. Alright, finally got that one in there. So now, what do we look like for the grease fitting? Can we get to it? And yeah, we'll just have to get it from the other side. Awesome. So let's load up that spring, put that spring over here. We're going to put that back down onto the groove with the circlip. Everything is tidied up. And as you can tell, I got the grease, oh there it is, I got the grease gun on the opposite side, ready to go add some grease. Got the spring set up in there, got the boots on both ends. So let's go ahead and give this thing a quick grease. And there's no reason you don't have to go too crazy with this. As soon as you see anything come out, and as long as I kind of point the camera the right direction so you guys can see, you can kind of hear it. As soon as you start hearing that air coming out of the U-joints, you know that the grease is not far behind. So that's it. Don't need to do much more than that, but I'll tell you what, grease will definitely add some longevity to any component. So we may as well do the back while we're here too. Alright guys, that was a boo-boo. And what I mean by that is I should have went with the 45-degree one on the back also. I can still grease it, but I had to go ahead and grind a little bit of material off the tip of my grease gun. Not a huge deal. It's not really all that much when you think about it. Overall look, if I can get my camera to focus. It's not much, and it gets on there just nice as it is now. Oh, it's hard to do this with... Sorry guys. Only got one hand right now. There you go. So it gets in there just fine. The issue with this is that if you wanted to use somebody else's grease gun if you're somewhere else, well, you're going to have to ask them to grease or to grind off the tip of their grease gun. And there it is, all fully assembled. Got the two covers, because it actually comes as a two-piece, covering the front and the rear drive shaft U-joints. So of course you need to remove these covers in order to grease them. But I plan on doing that every time I do an oil change, which is usually about once, maybe twice a year. Well, that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're still hanging on at the end of the video here, thanks for your support. I mean, you guys are troopers. And next video, we're going to be tackling the front wheel bearings, particularly on the left side, if you guys remember that one. I got a couple of things I'd like to show you there, so hopefully you'll stick around for that. But until then, I hope you guys have fun out there. Don't forget to grab your wrenches and go fix something.